everyone. Welcome into West Virginia football, right here on the Voice of College Football. I'm Joey Foster. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. Sorry about my absence the last couple of weeks. I wasn't feeling well and things, but hey, I'm back. I'm here, ready to go. Excited about tonight because I've got us a great guest. Most of you probably know who he is. Most of you have seen him on Wolfman Show. He's the author of the book Band of Brothers, Then and Now, right there. You can get it on Amazon. And he is none other than Mr. Frank Fear. Hey, Frank, how are you doing, buddy?
Hey, good to see you, buddy.
Nice to see you. Now, Frank, you served at Michigan State for 25 years. You were an alum of West Virginia University, author of the book Band of Brothers, which was an excellent book.
Thank you.
And things. Tell people how to find you on like social media sites and stuff, Twitter and things. Do you have a Twitter handle?
I do. You can find it at Frank Fear and on Facebook as well. And one of the things I also do is I'm managing editor of a blog called The Sports Column. And you just Google that. And the mission we're very proud of on the Sports Column is that we like to think that fans obviously have a lot to say. And typically they make what they say on social media and articles through short statements. But at our sports column, fans write full-length articles. We edit, put it up, and we're getting close to 4,000 articles over the last almost 10 years. So a lot of people take advantage of that, and we encourage you to go to the sports column. It's written by fans for fans.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, so as the title of this show suggests, we want to talk about the transfer portal a little bit and the turmoil that's going on, not only in West Virginia football, but West Virginia basketball. And, the NCAA really needs to get a hold of this. And I've said it for a while. And Frank, I don't know if you've ever heard me say this, but I've been saying if they would take the play-for-play rule out, if the NCAA would just do away with that pay-per-play rule so that when players sign an NIL contract, you can actually tie them to play at that university, that might actually solve a lot of the problem. I feel like. I don't know if it'll create other problems, and probably could, but I feel like if a player is tied to a university and they have to play there, and you can still have your NIL collective, you can still they could have their individual things, but they could write up an NIL contract. Okay, we're going to pay you $50,000 a year, but if you play at West Virginia for all 4 years, and after you graduate and you played all 4 years, we're going to give you $1 million bonus, something like that. It may be able to help with the transfer portal, I think. We heard rumors of Texas Tech paying $400,000 for. But I don't know how true that is. So, but this turmoil in the transfer portal, do you have an easy solution for it, Frank, or is there even an easy one?
Well, as you probably know, and the fans know if they're familiar with my work, I do a lot of focus on history, and I believe obviously it's the NCAA's responsibility. But if you look at the history of the NCAA, you can probably come to the conclusion, even if you didn't know that much about the portal, that this is not something the NCAA wants to deal with. I mean, this issue of the scholar athlete, the NCAA has gravitated to, and that was almost 50 years ago, and they've stuck with it. Well, the game, the sport, and the revenue-generating sports, basketball and football specifically, and now women's basketball too, has evolved to the point that, I have two colleagues, they're now retired at Michigan State, who did a study. And I mentioned this on the Wolfman Show a couple of weeks ago, where they basically took the functions that employees play at a major university and then asked, revenue-generating athletes how they spent their time and the roles and tasks they had. And the conclusion they came to, and this was a study that was published about 10 years ago, is that these kids are employees in terms of the amount of time they spend, in terms of the stakes of their work, et cetera, et cetera. There wouldn't be a portal if it weren't for the fact that we had the Alston lawsuit certainly was one, but also the O'Banion lawsuit was another that basically forced the university's hands to get off this student athlete. And then state legislatures across the country, starting with California, passed these laws that essentially brought us name, image, and likeness. So what's interesting about your proposal, Joey, I don't know if that would be proposal number one, but the beauty of what you offered is you're thinking. Let's sit down and come up with some ideas, and let's get this thing fixed. Because right now, we all know it's the Wild West. You just look at the in and out of West Virginia football this last year. The average, I think, last year in major college football was 20 or 22, I can't remember. And West Virginia was pretty much there, ins and outs. And you look at the basketball team, my God, it was built by the portal. We didn't have one incoming high school player. We don't. And now people are leaving after players are leaving after Huggins was resigned, to the point we only have 8 players. So what I would put on the table is this. The NCAA, which traditionally has hired former university presidents as their executive director or president, used to be executive director, now is president of the NCAA. They didn't do that this time. They hired a politician, the outgoing governor of the state of Massachusetts, Charlie Baker. And you know what that says. And he's already at it. He's going to Washington and essentially pleading that the federal government regulate at least the nil. But I think what happens if you ask the federal government to regulate one part of what you do, Katie bar the door, they're going to expand that over time. My thinking about this is you've got people in the Senate and in the House, U.S., who have played college football. Our own Joe Manchin, he was one of the Band of Brothers back in the 60s until he got hurt, had to drop football. You've got the senator from New Jersey. Yeah. Cory Booker played at Stanford. And then you have other senators that have been very interested, have written white papers, their staffs have written white papers, or they've made pronouncement. Chris Murphy from Connecticut, Blumenthal also from Connecticut. So, you've got those guys who are vested. This is not the biggest problem the United States faces. Why can't they're good at negotiation. It would be great if those guys would sit down with the NCAA leadership, not just Baker, but also the conferences, and we sit down and say, okay, now what are we going to do? What can we come to an agreement over? And I'll stop with this, because the conferences are not, the major conferences are not, they don't trust each other. In fact, I'm not sure there's high level of trust in the conferences. I was talking about finances the other day, and you look at the amount of money the University of Alabama has to spend on athletics, and then you look at Mississippi State in the same conference, and it's like 100 million versus 220 million. And so, Mississippi State has to look at Alabama and say, look, we're not Alabama. And Alabama's looking at Mississippi State and say, we're not Mississippi State. So you need an outside party to do that. But we got to get something done. This is absolute madness. And you can't even, every time you think it's done, okay, we'll promote internally in Morgantown and the players will stay. And as soon as the head coach is named, we lose players.
I know.
So, I'm not blaming the players. I'm saying, let's bring some sanity into this.
Right. And the thing about it is now they're all transferring, and there's no guarantee that they're going to get their waiver, right? They got to get a waiver from the NCAA that they can play. We got players transferred to Texas Tech, Kentucky, UNC. Yeah. There's no guarantee they're even going to get to play. The NCAA could tell them no, that the coach resigning was not a good enough reason to transfer. So they're taking risk by transferring. So that's what got me. Now, so you think that if the government gets involved, would they? Let's do it this way. I don't want government involved in anything, to be honest with you.
That's the issue for me and for a lot of people.
Right. anything they get their hands on pretty much starts to stink after a while,
Yeah,
and you just don't need that.
that's right.
But at the same time, I'm not one of those that goes around saying we need to dissolve the NCAA and just conferences do their own thing, because when you do that, and a lot of people don't realize this either, is that the basketball money from all these, the basketball money is NCAA basketball money, and they support Division II, Division III football programs with that money. They give that to those programs so that they can play their sports and things. If you dissolve the NCAA and the conferences just do their own thing, all of a sudden you get rid of all Division II, Division III sports. I mean, they wouldn't have the money to function. So you can't do that. That's not a solution. Capping, you can't cap the player, but you can cap the university, and that may be what they end up doing at some point, is capping the university on how much money they can pay out to players. I think if they take away, like I mentioned, taking away that rule, the pay per play rule, then they would have to cap it probably, because you take a school like Alabama and Texas, and the money them two schools have right there. There's nobody in the country that could compete with them. Nobody, if they didn't have a cap on it. So that would be tough. But
you're absolutely
go ahead.
correct. And I think the athletic director, one athletic director, was, I think, brutally honest a couple of weeks ago. AD at the University of Missouri Columbia said, "You know what? We compete over everything. We compete over students. Universities do. We compete over research dollars. We compete over everything. And in sports, we compete for fans. We compete for media money. We're competing over nil." And my own feeling, and I don't think I've ever read this, is that if you don't do, getting rid of the NCAA doesn't make any sense. But if you let this train keep on this track, those that have the most resources will do their best to choke out the teams that don't have the resources. And, I'm also of the opinion, and for years I said, oh my God, woe was the day that West Virginia went to the Big 12. I grew up when there was really the Big Four in the East, with Syracuse, Penn State, Pitt, and West Virginia, with great football teams. Great. I mean, you go back to Jimmy Brown. You've got our guys, Huff, etc. And it's just Ditka, Pitt. I could go on and on. Lydell Mitchell. Anyway, the bottom line is West Virginia is so much better off now, because the Big 12 is starting to really, really kill it. I hate to use it that way, but the point is, they're bringing in a lot of money. And if you do the analysis of the numbers, but West Virginia is never going to be a power broker in this. Never. And the Big 12 now is losing its Big 2, bringing in, I'd say, the Little 4, quite frankly. I mean, they're good schools, they're good programs, but these, let's be honest, they're a group of 5 teams who've gotten a huge upgrade to Power 5, which has really almost never happened in the history of the NCAA. Florida State, Arizona State are the 2 closest to it, but never a Central Florida, which didn't even have I think when I was in college, they just began their football program. They're a newbie. So the bottom line is we got to do something. And the point I would make is, and I'm not proposing that the government regulate the NCAA, but what I am saying is maybe those guys who have a strong commitment to football, like Joe Manchin and Cory Booker, can use the power of their position to get the NCAA at the table. And let's sit down and figure this out for the good of the schools, the fans, the athletes, everybody involved. Facilitate it so we get this thing done. Because the way this thing's going now, I mean, these kids obviously are free agents now. This is free agency. But it's gotten to the point that, as I talk with the Band of Brothers, one of the things they always talk about is, when we played at WVU, we played for our teammates, for the school, for the state. We had tremendous pride. And how are you you can't do that when you're at a different school every year. I mean, our starting quarterback, Daniels, last year is now going to Rice. Is that his 4th school? I think so.
Yeah.
That's his 4th school.
Yeah, 4th school, right.
Yeah, USC, Georgia, West Virginia, and now Rice.
He's
a free agent. So who's he going to give his money to as an alum? you got to bring that loyalty into it. Yeah, so I'm on the same
Yeah,
page with you. Got to have something done.
yeah, that's true. You look back and a good friend of mine, you're both as Dill Wolfley. Back when Wolfman played the game, there was loyalty to the program. There was hard work. There was dedication. There was commitment. It was great culture. I don't know if cultures are holding up through all this NIL and transfers and everything. This cultures around college football in general, everywhere, have to be in trouble right now. Because there's a lot. West Virginia is not the only team losing players. I mean, every team
Yeah.
in the country is losing players, and some of them are losing some really experienced players and things, starters. So that's gotta hurt culture and things. So yeah, I was looking at a comment here. I can't find it now, and
Well, you're looking for it. I'm saying that, what it does is it puts more pressure on the leaders that stay, those that stay behind. The other piece of this that's really important, I think, I would say, Joey, is that I don't, and I had a conversation with someone the other day about this. I don't like this idea. I'm not saying it's poaching, but it's near to poaching. I mean, we had one of our starters from last year is now going to Texas Tech. We lost a player last year to Baylor. They're both going to start. And we lost two football players, Tony Mathis, and we also lost Michael Laughlin to Houston. And so it's one thing when someone goes to UNC or Kentucky, but now we're seeing, I just named four players at West Virginia that are going to rival schools in the same conference.
right.
And maybe I'm too much of a traditionalist, but can't there be a gentle person's agreement that, it's fair game for everyone except players that are in your own conference? We can't even get that.
I know, and it used to be that. It used to be like that. I can remember, that who was it? We had a player transferred in from Oklahoma one year. Remember, and Lincoln Riley was holding back on him because he didn't want him to transfer to West Virginia. You remember that and stuff. So as West Virginia, I guess, is kind of as guilty as it is anybody else, and it really shouldn't happen within the conference. It should not be that coaches are going after other players within their conference, because that's bad for the conference. It doesn't just hurt that team; it hurts the conference. So, and I still can't find that message I was looking for. It was up here towards the top. So everybody's saying good evening. Let me give a shout out to the chat. Thanks everybody for being here. I also want to point out something to everyone in the chat. So we have a merchandise store for Voice of College Football, and I'm gonna bring that. It's topqualityshirts.com. Just go to topqualityshirts.com, or you can go to thevoiceofcollegefootball.com, thevoiceofcollegefootball.com. Right now we have these keychains in there. They are $3, and if you'll type in the word football as the code, it's free shipping. These are also have these coasters. Same deal, $29.95. But if you'll type in the code football, you'll get free shipping on those as well. And so something that we just launched, and we've got several merchandise, a lot of merchandise in our store. But read the description on the coasters and the keychains as well. It will tell you exactly how you can buy those and get free shipping. All right, Frank, let's move on for a second here. You had sent me a message earlier, a text message, that you wanted to talk about a little bit more stuff as well tonight. I apologize, Frank. My computer is not cooperating with me at all, and I cannot find that message now. But anyway, so you wanted to talk about a couple of things tonight, but first off, let's talk about this solutions to this transfer thing that we were talking about, and you were talking about them going this the NCAA president. And that's what I was going to bring up, the NCAA president. What are your thoughts on him? Do you know him at all? Have you met him?
I don't. I mean, as I said, the traditional route was someone who is in higher education with responsibility for athletic programs, because presidents do. then becomes the president of the NCAA. We've broken that now. And so we have an outgoing governor who's the NCAA president. Well, the fact that they wanted a politician, I think the NCAA is saying it without any words spoken, that Washington's going to solve the problem. Well, and as you said, and I'll tell you what, I have not talked with anybody who has said, Frank, the number one solution is NCAA regulation of college football, except for those who basically say, this is a cesspool. There's too much money in it. They may or may not be college football fans or college basketball fans, and they want it reformed. But for folks like you and me who are fans and who really want to see what's best, a win-win-win situation, best for the game, best for the universities, the NCAA, and the athletes and the fans, all of those, you can do that. But getting this regulation thing, I think, is a big mistake. And you said earlier, I'm not sure what the downside would be of your own proposal. I would predict that once you open that door to regulation, if it happens, you basically thrown away the key to your own door. You won't be able to direct yourself. Maybe it's going to come to that, but it's wrong. And I also would say this: the NCAA just came out with some new proposals with respect to the portal, and I read them and I said to myself, okay, these are good. These are good ideas. They want to, for example, to reduce the time span that players have to be able to declare I'm going to another school down to 30 days, because the portal time varies now depending on whether it's a fall sport, a winter sport, or a spring sport. Okay, so make it 30 days for all. And then they also proposed that if there's a coaching change, that the player, if the player does not want to play under the new coach, the player would keep the scholarship, and that scholarship would not be counted against the school's number. Well, I think that's good. That's fair. Clearly, it's fair for the student because, it's an abrupt change having a coach leave if you don't want to play under the new coach or believe I'm going to get no playing time under this new guy. But to me, it's like you got $1,000 a month mortgage, and you decide and declare with trumpets, I'm going to pay $10 a week on this. I mean, those are just underwhelming in terms of the larger scope of the problem we're facing. So I really think we're in a crisis situation. That's why I think I wanted to come on tonight. This is an important topic, Joey. This is a crisis. And I think, I hate to use an academic term, but we talk about climate change as an existential threat. It threatens your existence. If they don't get this portal thing fixed and the NIL fixed, it could lead to the end of the NCAA, not because the NCAA wants it, but because, okay, just close the damn door and let's try another structure. That's how serious this is.
Well, I think already we're seeing kind of the outlying effects of it, because if you're a fan, let's say you were a fan of, I don't know, a smaller school, Tulane. Let's just say Tulane. You're a fan of Tulane. It used to be you could go out and get some good 3 stars and every once in a while get you a good 4-star recruit. Now you're competing money wise. Now you're Tulane. You're competing with LSU and stuff to try to get somebody, and they've got money, and you maybe don't have the money. Also, you're in a weaker conference, so that player. I think what's happening is the fan bases are saying, "All right, I love Tulane. I'll continue to watch them, but I'm not really going to follow it as close because there's just no excitement anymore." And it's happening at bigger universities too, because I'm hearing it from West Virginia fans. Right. I have heard from so many West Virginia fans, I'm not even going to watch basketball this year. I was so excited about this year, and now I'm done. If they don't get a grip on this is going to cause college football and college basketball to just go, and it's declining fast. I mean, it's declining quickly. We've seen all this happen.
Yeah, what you're saying is absolutely true, and I'm seeing this on Facebook in particular, where people, Twitter, you have to compress your thoughts, but Facebook people can express it more more thoroughly, so to speak. Is I'm seeing that over and over again. And what the fans are begging for is stability and consistency. What they don't want, I mean, if we're West Virginia fans. I've said this publicly and privately. Get the hell out of the newspapers. Let's stop this. There seems like there's a different headline every single day. And, none of the headlines are good. Well, few of the headlines are good. And the negative headlines, as you know, outweigh the positive headlines because they make such a splash. As we talked today, the basketball team had to cancel the Italy tour, and they deferred it to next year. Well, they only have 8 players. They've got to focus on. They've got, I guess, 5 scholarships open. 12 at least players. They're working the portal now. They've got to get players into Morgantown. You don't want to go into the season with an 8 player bench. You just can't do this. So you're absolutely correct. I mean, fans are getting, it's beyond frustration, and some are giving up.
Now, these players that we lost, they all had NIL deals. I guess there's nothing that could be done. Those NIL deals kind of stand, don't they? I mean, if they had like a car, that might be in a lease. But if it was money involved, they would probably already done their advertisements for the business, and they got their money.
Yep.
And now they're off to another school.
Yeah. I don't know the specifics of that, but I wouldn't be a bit surprised. And I think the center that transferred, I'm blanking on his name now, from Syracuse. He was the most, I think, outspoken, at least among the WVU revenue athletes, who basically, it was either reported or he was asked the question that West Virginia's offer was significantly higher, as much as twice as high of what Syracuse was offering for him to stay. And so, but the good news for West Virginia is anybody who says, well, these players we had that Huggins recruited who were on the bench, they weren't all that good and they weren't going to start. Well, look at where they all went. I mean, Kentucky, Texas Tech, North Carolina. These are not minor schools. These are major schools. You look at North Carolina and Kentucky, it's the second player in 4 years, I guess, or 3 years, Kentucky's grabbed. And so, they're being quite mobile. And NIL is what's driving all of this, because they're not leaving because, there's a better major there. They're leaving because, and they're also searching for stability as well as NIL funding.
Right. Talking to Frank Fear, author of the Band of Brothers Then and Now. Be sure and look that up on Amazon. Get you a copy of the book. Awesome book. So, Frank, do you mind if I put you on the spot tonight? I want to talk a little bit about football now. Just transition over to football. And I want to talk about the Big 12 and football this year. I was watching, David Smoke, 365 Sports. I was watching David Smoke and Craig Smoke and Paul Catalina.
Mm-hmm.
They did a show and talked about top to bottom Big 12. They all agreed West Virginia was 14th in the conference this year. I don't have us that low, but that's not like I got us at the top either. But putting West Virginia at 14th, do you think that's a reflection on the talent we have at the school, on the coaching staff, or a combination of both?
Well, I don't feel like I'm on the spot with that question because I've thought a lot about it. This goes back to what I said before. You can say all you want about the fact that we may have the best quarterback duo in the Big 12. And even though we lost Tony Mathis, you got Donaldson, who came out of nowhere last year to just blow people away in that Pitt game right out of the chute. But those positive stories don't have as much impact. This is what I think. And I wouldn't go so far as what Brad Smith, I think it was reported today in the Voice of Motown, he's predicting WVU to go 8-4 overall and 6-3 in the Big 12. I think that's on the high side, but this is what I think. Yeah, well, we've all heard West Virginia, the rumor that was published by allegedly from a coach rival coach saying they look like a MAC school. They're small. Well, I just, you got the three new schools coming in. They're a group of 5 schools. They're good schools. And you're telling me West Virginia is going to lose to all 3 of them? Houston, trust me, and people know this who are students, Houston is not that strong. UCF is coming off not one of its better years. They have a great dual threat quarterback. He runs like crazy. I mean, he's probably a better runner, transfer from Ole Miss, and probably a better runner than a passer. And then you have Cincinnati that is doing a pirouette after the coach left, Fickle left for Wisconsin, and have a new coach. I personally think that 14th is to me is insulting. Now, having said that, I think just about everyone would probably say the proof's going to be in the pudding, and let's see how we do in the first couple of games. And that includes coaching decisions. One person said the other day to me, if WVU calls a timeout in the first minute again, I think I'm just going to go into the little boys' room and chuck it up. Again, that's hyperbolic, but you got to have those guys have to hit the field with the idea that they're playing. Look, we're playing for West Virginia. We're playing for each other, just like the Band of Brothers did, and the Don Nealon's teams did, and the Bill Stewart's teams did, and the Rich Rod's those teams did. You can go back through the years and name others. And we do not mean to lose. We may lose, but we're just going to give it everything. And I think the secondary is better than last year. But here's the thing, and we all know this, and I looked it up today. Sports Illustrated last year rated, I think, West Virginia's strength of schedule about 15, 16. Number 3 this year. Number 3, third toughest schedule. So what I think that says to us is you've got a Kansas State TCU opportunity here to come out of nowhere and do something special. But you got to have commitment, and that secondary has to improve. The linebackers and the line have to improve, but you got a solid offense. Is there a better offensive line in the Big 12? I mean, you look at that. You got Doug Nestor. You got all those guys on that line that are just outstanding. Maybe the best center in the country, and you got 2 quarterbacks who may end up playing in tandem. That will drive offenses crazy. Plus a number of good incoming players. I'm going to look up his name here. I had a chance to bump into a new defensive back that transferred in from Kansas State. His dad, in the parking lot of a hotel after the spring game, Montre Miller, watched for that guy. His dad said his goal is to lead the conference in interceptions. That's his goal. And to me, that says this guy is reaching. And the other thing I think we got to look at, which I think is ever so important, Oliver Straw's got to have another good, special teams are critical, another good season in punting, and the incoming kicker, because obviously we lost Casey Legg, is Michael Hayes from Georgia State, who only has place kicked 1 year, but he was very effective last year, made 78% of his kicks, 1 from 51 yards, because the degrees of freedom aren't going to be great. So that means West Virginia has to take advantage of opportunities, can't shoot themselves in the foot, have to have strong special teams, can't give up big plays, and then if you do, you have to rebound. And, I sound like a coach. That's what I'd be saying. And those coaches, they're going to have to do their part to make sure that these are strategic decisions. And that now is not the time to be shy. 4th and 1, more often than not, you go for it.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Now, we were talking earlier, and we were talking about the 4 big teams in the Big East. And you can think back into the 80s, and you had the Beast of the East. I can remember 1988 when we beat Penn State, the Beast of the East signs everywhere, and stuff. It was a pretty special thing. So let me bring up real quick. I have it here. Let me bring this up. The 2023 football schedule.
Yeah.
And if we look at it, West Virginia going to Penn State game one, I don't expect to win that game. I don't. I mean, would I like for us to win it? Oh, of course, and I would love for it to be a close game. But Penn State's probably a playoff team this year, probably one of the best teams in the country. So I don't see us winning that one. Then we got Duquesne. That should be a win. Pitt, backyard brawl, definitely has to be a win. It's at home. I think that game is going to determine a lot whether or not Neil Brown is our coach the whole year. I really do. I think if he loses the Pitt, he could lose his job that night. Um, just simply because of the outrage of the fans, if you ask me. So if I'm looking at this schedule, I've looked this schedule over 100 times. And we're going to Penn State, right? We're going to TCU. We're going to Houston. We're going to UCF. We're going to Oklahoma. And we're going to Baylor. That is a tough schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I think Cincinnati's going to be down this year. We play the 4 newcomers, right? I think Cincinnati's down. I think BYU's probably a little bit better than West Virginia right now, but they're probably I think they're down compared to what they normally have. So I don't think they're going to be. I think we can beat them, especially since they're coming to Morgantown. I think UCF is going to be a tough game. We got to go to UCF, and that's going to be a tough game. I've heard a lot of people say they're worried about Cincinnati. I'm not. Here's my reason behind that. Since West Virginia and Cincinnati have a long history of playing football.
That's right.
And Cincinnati is 3-18 against West Virginia in football. 3-18. I don't see that changing just because they're coming to the Big 12. Now they've got a new coaching staff. They lost a lot of players. They lost a lot of transfers, too. So I don't. Cincinnati's going to be probably at the bottom of the conference this year, in my opinion. Houston, bottom of the conference, in my opinion. BYU and down near the bottom, not probably the bottom, but down near the bottom. So to say West Virginia, like David Smoke and them said today, West Virginia is 14th in the conference. I can't buy that at all because we'll beat 3 of those teams. 3 of those 4. We should win 3 of those 4 games against the newcomers. And then, we should beat Pitt. We'll beat Duquesne. That's 5 wins right there. Can we pick up a win somewhere else? I think it's possible. So I think we'll go bowling this year. I think we will go to bowl game. I don't see us 8-4. I see us maybe 6-6, possibly 7-5, but more likely 6-6. I don't see a year as bad as last year, but in saying that, I think a lot depends on that Pitt game because if we lose to Pitt, the fans are going to be outraged. They will not support the team. They will not show up for the home games, and that's sad. That's bad. I'm not in any way suggesting that we do that. We need to show up for those games. But what is going to happen to Neil Brown if we lose to Pitt? So I think that's a big question.
Yeah, I agree with your assessment, Joey. I thought a lot about the fact, what would last season have been if that fourth down and 1 was converted, and then if Ford Wheaton had caught that pass downfield. I think West Virginia would have given a shot in the arm. There's another thing that I think that's last year, but there's another thing I think that's really important, and you know this. We've both been around the block. We can speculate all we want, but there are always things on the inside that very few people know, and that's why they're called insiders. They're there and they know what's going on. What has blown me away, think about this. Neil Brown, if you pick up the paper, go to your social media, Neil Brown's in trouble. Neil Brown may not finish the season. So that's going to just kill recruiting. So you don't want to come to Morgantown with a coach who may be here not even completing the season. Right. Well, in the last month, I looked at Rivals on the 4th. Rivals is a great recruiting They just do a great job covering recruiting. Rivals.com on July 4th had West Virginia at number 29 in the country for next year's recruits, and number 2, and they have a formula for this, number 2 in the Big 12. Only OU was number 1. That means they had, at least for now, better recruiting than Texas, Texas Tech, Baylor, schools that you wouldn't expect. I'm asking, okay, since the picking of the school, it also carries a lot of risk. These kids are all saying, I'm going to Morgantown, and we're shooting up the rankings. 29, I mean, that's for West Virginia, that's never going to get, like Ohio State and Michigan and Notre Dame, a whole bunch of 4 stars with some 5 stars. What you got to do, you're going to get a lot of 3 stars with a few 4 stars. But Neil Brown and the staff are killing it. Now, the big question is this a high quality staff to be able to coach these guys up once they get here? And do they have the kind of attitude? You can say whatever you want about Rich Rod, but oh my God, no one's going to beat us. That was Rich Rod's, and Don Nehlen is exactly the same way. But still, the fact that these recruits are signing on with WVU, I think, is a very hopeful sign.
Yeah. So I'm watching the chat over here, and SEC Dog says West Virginia should play Pitt every year. Last year's evening game with them was awesome, and they hate each other. And he said he didn't know that till last year. SEC Dog's a Georgia fan, so appreciate you being here. Appreciate everybody being here tonight in the chat. If you're here, be sure and hit the like and subscribe button. We do a show every Friday night, but also Monday through Thursday, we have the Wolfman, Dale Wolfley, on here every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 4 o'clock. And we have the Frank Fear coming. Frank Fear comes on with him every Monday. It's every Monday, right, Frank? You're on with Dale?
Right. Rated 4.
Yep. We'll make sure I was right about that. Yeah, come on. He comes on at 4 o'clock with Dale Wolfley every Monday. So be sure and get over and watch that show. All right. So I think that that West Virginia's recruiting, here's what I've always said. If we can get them on campus, they see the facilities, they're amazing, they sign the dotted line. It's getting them here to visit is the thing. Most people, when they come to Morgantown, they love it. They fall in love with it, fall in love with the culture, fall in love with the people, fall in love with the area. And it is a beautiful area.
I plead guilty.
Right. So I think that, but if we look at coaching hires, so Chad Scott now being promoted to offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And my sources, this is what I was told, is they went after Clint Trickett at Marshall and he turned them down because Neil Brown's on the hot seat. And Clint Trickett couldn't see making that move to West Virginia, to coming over to West Virginia University as the offensive coordinator with a coach that's on the hot seat. So he may not even be there 1 year and be looking for another job. So I can understand that. I like Chad Scott. I really do. I think he's a great coach and stuff like that. Getting back to facilities, so there's a video out right now on YouTube. There's a gentleman, I can't remember his name. He's really good, but he tours facilities everywhere in the country. He goes in and he tours them. So he was at Western University, fell in love with it and everything. We put out this top 25 facilities video, top 25 facilities in the country. West Virginia was on there twice, once for basketball, once for football, for facilities, because he did overall facilities for everything. West Virginia made that chart twice. The only team I heard make it twice, Oregon may have made it twice. I don't remember, but West Virginia's got some nice facilities and everything. So I was real happy about that. So I'm trying to keep up a chat here and see if anybody's got any questions for us. I don't see any. So you're thinking though West Virginia could go to a bowl game this year yourself. You thought 8-4 was a little high. What do you have us going? What do you think? What do you think?
Well, well, we got to get to the stability and get the negative headlines out of the paper. If we could go 4-5, 5-4 in the Big 12 and 6-6 overall, for me, I think that Penn State game, just like the Pitt game last year, is a table setter. And winning that game may be as important as it is. And I don't want to, say something I'll regret later. How we play that game is, to me, the critical thing. In other words, taking advantage of opportunities, not giving up the big play, which is a big deal. You look at Jordan Leslie, the defensive coordinator. He has his hands full because we lost some guys on the defensive side. We've got some great players there, but the fact is, we got to have a strong defense. Penn State's going to run the ball. They'll intermix it with obviously passes, run options. But if we can keep that game close, and that's not really how I want to put it, but if we can show, Penn State got a hell of a game. I think I think that is, to me, an important thing. And then I agree, we got to beat Pitt. That game, you come out and you just refuse to lose. That game, and the fans have to will, but the players have to want that. The coaches have to, again, do their part, make good decisions, be strategic.
So LFG says, who was the guest favorite W player from the Don Nehlen era? And I'm gonna answer that one too myself, and I'm gonna say this: I can't pick a favorite player from Don Nehlen era because I'm good friends with 90% of them. I mean, really, really am. One of my favorite players of all time was probably Eugene Napoleon. Eugene Napoleon's a great friend of mine. I think the world of him. So I think that was a great. It was a great player. Dale Wolfley, great friend of ours, great player. Major Harris, great player. Mark Bolger, great player. You can go back and there's just so many of them that were great players. I couldn't name one though, because I wouldn't feel right, because like I say, I'm friends with a lot of them.
Yeah.
And I really did never draw a conclusion as to who was my favorite. I think we all do it as a fan, obviously. But as far as like once their football season's over and they're gone and they're moved on to the NFL or their careers, whatever they're doing, I don't look back and think, boy, he was my favorite player of all time. I don't do that. If I had to do that.
Yeah, I always take the perspective of looking for what I would call the generational player, the player that when you look at them and see how they play, you go, my God, this cat is a breed apart. I grew up in Syracuse, New York. And when I was very young, my introduction to football was watching Jimmy Brown play for in those days, the Orangemen. They're not the Orangemen anymore. They're the Orange. When I came to WVU, it was Jim Braxton. You would see Jim Braxton on the field and you said to yourself, whoa, wow, this is a guy that he was a place kicker, tight end, running back. He could do it all, and a great baseball player to boot. And I always felt that way about Major Harris. I never said to myself, well, this guy isn't going to be great unless he goes on and has a great pro career. But when you think of the kind of player that could lift up a team on his back, not just a spectacular play, but for me, it was Major Harris. And I still believe if he hadn't gone down earlier to injury in that Fiesta Bowl, West Virginia would have won a national championship. No question.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think if you ask most players from the past, even the current players, who's their favorite West Virginia player of all time was, a lot of them would tell you Major Harris. I know Wolfman would. Wolfman would tell you real quick, Major Harris, So, all right. Excuse me, Jackson Johnson says when he thinks of top quarterbacks, he thinks of Pat White and quarterback running back duos, Pat White, Steve Slayton, without a doubt.
And I'll tell you what, I'm glad that who was it? Justin put that up. Was it Justin? I didn't see his name.
Yeah, Jackson Johnson. Yeah.
Jackson. Thanks for doing that, because I'll tell you, we hold WVU close to our heart, but there are football fans all over the country who aren't WVU fans, but they marvel at incredible talent, and they'll start watching a team even though they're not a fan, hoping to see on the field brilliance, and those two I think epitomized what a quarterback and a running back duo can do for you. And I'm not saying that the quarterbacks we have this year with Donaldson are of the same ilk, but I tell you those what team wouldn't want Donaldson in their backfield? I mean, it's so you've got a top echelon player there, and I really do like the Garrett Green Nico combo. And not only do I like them on the field, I tell you I like what those guys stand for, what they say. They're leaders. Those two guys are leaders, and that's what Pat White was, Steve Slayton, Major Harris. That's what we need. We need leaders. We need leaders on the field, and we go gaga over offense.
Right. So Sandra Green says Yormark said West Virginia has the best facilities in Big 12, and Tech fans didn't like that. uh, um, so our girl says, Joey, we be going to Happy Valley. Considering it, not decided yet on that. I'm kind of open. I'm open to going, and I'm hoping to get to go, but I may not get to right now.
Yeah.
So 15, haven't
as you're looking through that, and I'm thinking about what I just said about the fans from around the country. That Penn State game and the Pitt game won't be a result on a crawler coming across ESPN. Those are primetime night games. The nation's going to be watching both of those games. Mm-hmm. So I mean, this is you got to show your stuff.
Yeah, you got to show up and you got to show out, right?
Yeah,
You've got to.
Absolutely.
The players have to. They have to put on their man pants at Happy Valley.
That's
There's
right.
no doubt. There's no doubt about that. That place is extremely loud. I don't know how many people have ever been to Happy Valley, but I'll tell you right now, it's extremely loud.
Yeah.
They talk about how we're not real friendly. Let me tell you what, them guys ain't real friendly up there either.
I can tell you that from being in the Big Ten for multiple decades.
Yeah.
It's not a place. They'll white it out. They'll have 104,000, over 100,000. First game of the season, all that stuff. Yeah, Oliver Luck, great quarterback. Again, he's one of those guys that people watched from around the country. They knew his name. So I agree. Yep, great teams.
Yeah. Jeff Hostetler as well.
Oh, talk about, there wasn't a portal back then, but that was one we got from Penn State. And what a great leader. And that win over Oklahoma down there still stands as one of the biggest wins in Mountaineer history.
Yep. Here's another great one. Whoops, sorry, not that one. This one right here.
Oh,
Daryl Talley.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and now Daryl's a great guy too. I got the honor to go and sit down and have dinner with him last year. Me and the Wolfman and a few of us, and that was a lot of fun. We went to backyard brawl.
You talk about a refuse to lose mentality, and he's one of the guys who went on and had a tremendous pro career. And I had a chance to talk with him when he was up for the spring game, and actually he was interviewed by Greg Christ, and he said this when someone asked him, and I believe this: if Buffalo had won one of those Super Bowls, one of the 4 Super Bowls they all lost, I think he'd be in the NFL Pro Hall. I really do. I think what happens is you gotta win. I mean, look how long it took Chuck Howley to get into the Hall. He's going in this year, and they won. Buffalo Bills needed to win one of those. I agree. I believe that's true. He would have gotten in. He should be in. He was a terror. Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I grew up near Buffalo. In fact, that's where I'm at a bar near Buffalo as we speak. And
Yeah.
so, that the Tally name up here and the Wolfley name, because he's from Orchard Park where the Bills play. Everybody knows who they are.
I'll tell you another great player, someone that I had the privilege of meeting at the backyard brawl as well. So how this was is a bunch of us went to the backyard brawl, kind of traveled up there and stuff. We went to a restaurant, had a big show. It's a restaurant. It was Bill Wolfley, Tommy Two, or Tommy Lopez, and we had Major Harris there. Hostetler, I don't think Hostetler wasn't there. But Major Harris was there, and Daryl Talley was there. But another one that was there, and I didn't even get to talk to him, not one time. But then we boarded a bus to ride over to Ackshire Stadium last year.
Oh, yeah.
And he was on the bus with me, sitting beside of me, and we was talking and just joking and having a good time. We got off the bus, and I said, you look really premier. I just can't place your name. And he shook his hand out and he said, I'm Adrian. I said, you're Adrian Morrell. He said, yes, sir. And I said, yes, sir. And Adrian and I have talked several times since then. We traded numbers and everything. Great guy, great NFL guy, great running back at West Virginia University, great running back in the NFL, but a good guy all the way around too. So,
boy, it's this is what really pains me. There's so much to celebrate in West Virginia basketball and football over the years that these times now, they're dragging us down a bit. But let's do that pivot and let's have this go the other way, because Jeff, great game against Pitt in '83. Yeah, first backyard brawl against Don Nealon. Yeah, Jackson, that's right. And you can imagine how much satisfaction that was for Jeff to win that game and Don to get into the winning. There's so many great memories.
Yeah. So she says Hallie was a beast in '72.
Yeah, I mean, and he was a beast at WVU too. When you look at those teams of the 1950s, beating Penn State 3 years in a row. Pappy Lewis was such a great coach, great recruiter. And it's just, that's the other thing is everybody in the country who's a football fan knows who Huff is. And everybody knows who Howley is, who's a student of the game. They may not remember they went to West Virginia or even know that, but we can take pride in that. What a recruiter Pappy Lewis was through the 50s and bringing these guys in. Unbelievable. In fact, in the book, I have a couple portraits of him recruiting, and he would go into houses and just wow the mother usually, and the kid would sign, and he put WVU football on the map. That was the first long-term winning tradition we had in the 50s with him and these guys. Oh my God, the quarterback. Morgantown's own. What a you can go through the different eras. And of course, my guys, the Band of Brothers, with playing under Bobby Bowden, his first go around as a major college coach, and Jim Carlin, who's up for the College Hall this year. Yeah, that's right. You're right, Sandra. So much tradition to be proud of. Absolutely, so much tradition, and we got to remember that. I'm not into a lot of this Facebook naysaying. We're not going to win a game. We're no good. Come on.
Yeah.
Doesn't do any good for anybody.
So LFG says, I watched those 80s Pitt WU games on TV every year. Yeah, I think we all did. I went to most of them. I have to admit. My dad and I went to games all the time. And some people think I'm crazy, but the New River Gorge Bridge, before it was built here in West Virginia, it would take my dad and I 5.5 hours to sometimes 6 hours, depending on traffic, to drive to Morgantown.
You're coming from Beckley?
Coming from Beckley.
Yeah.
And it would take us 5.5 to 6 hours to get to Morgantown before that bridge was constructed. So, yeah, I'm old, guys. So those were great. Those were great
Yeah.
games. Those were great times. I can tell you right now. I can remember coming back from a game one time, and that bridge wasn't built yet. We was coming down 19. We were in Summersville. My dad's alternator went out on this car. It's 1 o'clock. It's 1 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
It's 1 o'clock in the morning, and we're in the middle of Summersville now. At that time in Summersville's grown up. Grown up now. You know, there's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah.
There was absolutely nothing in Summersville then. We walked for 2 miles to get to a payphone to call a friend of ours in Beckley, who came and picked us up and brought us back home. We had to go up the next day and change an alternator. I've had my share of fun at basketball games. John Kelly, how you doing, buddy? Appreciate you being here. Glad you came in with us. Todd Gwynn says, "What is Brown's salary? What is Brown's salary?
So it was not as much as Huggins. I know that.
4 million, I think.
Much less, I think.
Okay, so I knew
Yeah,
it
he
bounced
was-
20 million. So
Yeah, I'm gonna say I haven't looked at it recently, but I remember when I looked at it, Bob Huggins' salary was significantly more.
all right.
Got to be around 2, I would guess.
Yep. All right. Well, we've been an hour. I appreciate you coming on, Frank. I want to tell everybody one more time. Be sure, because Frank Pierce's a great guy. Be sure, go over, check out his book. Let me bring that up one more time here for you. Check out his book, Band of Brothers, on Amazon. I'm going to bring that up so you can see it. Band of Brothers, Then and Now. Read that book, guys. Grab that book. You can get it on Kindle for $9.99, hardcover $29.99, paperback $21.99. Check that out. I think you'll enjoy it.
And also, I appreciate that very much. Also, for you can pick it up at local bookstores, and I'll be back. We've been invited back for another book signing at the Barnes and Noble in Morgantown. We're going to be there Friday night, September 15th, and you know what that is, the night before the Pitt game. So if you're in Morgantown and want to come by, I'd love to shake your hand. And even if you don't buy a book, we'll be there starting at 5:30 on Friday night, September 15th, and we're looking forward to that. And if you live up in the Panhandle, there's going to be a big bash with more details on the 14th in Moundsville through the Marshall County Co-op up there. And a number of the players will be at both places, and so we're excited. We're excited. I'm in Michigan. Well, I'm in New York State right now, but I'm in Michigan during the summer. So, thank Jackson. I really appreciate that. It's very kind of you to say. It was a labor of love. I enjoyed so much talking with the guys and writing the book, and we're in contact almost every day still. So it's been an honor.
All right, guys, we appreciate everybody being here. We'll be back with you next Friday night, 8 o'clock. Be sure, stay tuned to Voice of College Football, because we're going to have a live show tonight at 10 o'clock. Mark Rogers will be going live. So be sure and stick around for that here in about 55 minutes. And be sure and check out Wolfman's Call right here on the West Virginia channel every Monday. Frank Fear is on there. But he's on Monday through Thursday. Wolfman is Monday through Thursday at 4 o'clock. Frank Fear joins him every Monday at 4 o'clock. So be sure and tune into that. We appreciate everybody coming in here tonight. We had a good crowd. We had a really nice crowd. I appreciate everybody being here. Appreciate all the nice comments and the great comments in the chat. We hope everybody has a great day, great weekend. And, hey, not much longer till we get to kick off some college football games.
And thank you, Joey, for having me. I enjoyed it enormously.
Frank, we appreciate you coming on, very much. I love having you on here. This has been great. I really appreciate it. Everyone have a great night, and we will talk to you later on.